Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Worst Take. It's your host, Garland, aka the King of Bad Takes. Just like every single week, we're going to be going over the quarterbacks starting in the NFL. We're going to go through 32 quarterbacks this week. Unlike my last video, which you haven't seen already, please be sure to check that one out. We're not going to be going as in-depth on these quarterbacks. Just basically, if there's a lot of movement between them, we're going to kind of explain why that's the case. But starting off in the poverty quarterback tier, we're just going to be going with Bryce Young. He's the worst quarterback in the NFL by far, and it's kind of amazing to watch. How is this guy the first overall pick? This might be the worst first overall pick ever in the history of the NFL, and I'm being 100% serious. He's probably a lot worse than Jamarcus Russell, but it's going to take a little bit of time to tell. But as of right now, it's not looking good for Booster Seat Bryce. Coming up next, I have Daniel motherfucking Dimes, and I had this guy as my worst quarterback in the NFL last week. However, this is more of a testament to show how terrible Bryce Young is than how good Daniel Jones is. He did okay versus a terrible Commanders defense, so, I mean, he kept the team in the game, I guess, but they still lost. Coming up next, I have famous, respected woman, Deshaun Weinstein, Deshaun Watson. He is awful ass. He had one good half of football and then completely fell off a fucking cliff. They almost lost to the Jaguars. That's just pathetic. The Browns are so much better without him as quarterback. Please sit him, which will never happen because he's getting paid so much money. And then in the too soon to tell tier, the first quarterback I have going on here is Bo Nix. This guy is not looking good at all. If I were to just go off of like performance, he's probably below Daniel Jones. He's just terrible, but you got to really take into consideration the fact that his wide receivers have the worst separation in the NFL. And his O-line is terrible, and he has no run game. So there's nothing to really back him up, and it doesn't really seem like he's comfortable using his legs yet, which once he gets more into the swing of the NFL and the tempo, I think he's going to be, like, fine. He's not going to be great or anything, but he just seems like another failed Broncos quarterback. Coming up next, I have Will motherfucking Levis. Where's the mailman? Where is he? He's right here. You know, again, he's extremely handsome, and he plays for my favorite team, but that's not going to save him from the fact that he makes a lot of really stupid and inexplicable mistakes. And when he's not doing that, he makes some really pretty throws, and he runs the ball. He's fucking fiery, but he's not been playing good at all. And up next, I have the number one overall draft pick from this season. I have Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams is, you know, he played pretty good for the first quarter. I kind of fell asleep halfway through the game because it was very boring. But, I mean, he looks fine. He's got good wide receivers around him, so he probably should be playing better. But it's just another, it's kind of like a Justin Fields case where, like, he's just taking too many sacks. But when he's throwing the ball, he's looking like he can make some really good tight window throws on time. And he just really needs to catch up to the speed of the NFL and stop making stupid mistakes. I think he had 2 interceptions. He probably could have thrown a third if it didn't get called back for penalty. But that's kind of a lot of quarterbacks right now, as we'll see later on in the tier list. And that's it for that tier. So we're going to be on to the extremely mid with Jacoby Brissett, which I think is the perfect way to describe him because he's just extremely mid. He checks down the ball a lot. He's going to get you. He's been getting the Patriots in position to win their last 2 games, but they weren't able to close it out against the Seahawks. So I think that does kind of fall on the fact that Jacoby Brissett is not going to ever be enough to win you a game. Hunter Henry had a crazy game. It seems like he has a good connection there, and maybe the Patriots are able to scrape off a few more wins with him at the helm. Next up, I have Mr. Kirk O'Chains. He is not looking good after the Achilles injury. This is kind of a shame. Maybe if he can really retrain his throwing arm and his stance, he can kind of rapidly fly back up the tiers. But as of right now, he's not looking good. This is being recorded before the Eagles-Falcons game. Just keep that in mind. So if he has a really good game tonight, then next week he's going to be a lot higher on the tier list. Up next, I have Mr. Trevor Lawrence, a.k.a. the Prince who was promised. He's just bad. I mean, they can't beat the Browns. I know the Browns are a tough defense, but dude, you have Brian Thomas is looking like a really, really good draft pick, and Christian Kirk and Travis Etienne, and you're just still not looking good. Trevor Lawrence is a huge disappointment. And finally in this tier, I have Gardner Minshew, who actually had a pretty good game against the Ravens, had a big upset win over there. But, of course, that win was heavily on the back of Devontae Adams, who had one of the best fourth quarters you'll ever see out of a wide receiver. Guys, please look up that toe drag he had. It was fucking insane. That is one of the best catches that I think is just going to get kind of overlooked. The dude was 90 degrees, horizontal, and his toes were inbounds. The ball was a yard and a half, outside of the field of play. And Devontae Adams just reached out, snatched that fucking thing. I mean, Gardner Minshew's got a lot of weapons. Brock Bowers looked incredible. So he's going to put up some pretty decent numbers, but don't be fooled. He's not that good. And now moving on to the flawed but good tier. These are quarterbacks that, as I see more of, they really are showing their major flaws. There's potential for them to kind of patch up those holes. They are still fine. Like, they're better than the other quarterbacks so far, but there's definitely things there holding them back. First up, I have Anthony Richardson, and I had this guy extremely high in my last video, and I'm kind of regretting that after this game. I mean, losing to the Malik Willis Packers is just insane. By the way, I forgot to rank Malik Willis, so I'll be right back. All right, sorry guys, my bad. I forgot to rank Malik Willis as well. I have him in the too soon to tell tier because, honestly, he didn't really play that bad against the Colts. He just did what he had to do, kind of same thing he was doing on the Titans to win the game, and he threw pretty nice touchdowns, kind of a tight window there. But all in all, I mean, they're just not going to rely on him to win the game, but his legs are good enough to kind of get the job done. He's a dual threat quarterback. There's still potential there, in my opinion. But anyways, back to Anthony Richardson. This guy just really struggles with accuracy. And yeah, the deep ball looks incredible. The running looks incredible. But still, like, it's just so inconsistent. I mean, you really need to be able to pilot an offense, not just be this flashy playmaker. It's good to be a role player at some points. You know what I mean? Like, that's not always a bad thing. So I think that Anthony Richardson, of course, all the potential in the world is still there. The physical traits are all there, but he really just needs to kind of put all the pieces together on a more consistent nightly basis for him to go up a lot higher in this tier. Then we have that's not Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is right here. Aaron Rodgers is, again, flawed. He's just not mobile. He's still missing passes, but Jets, they're just a clown show. I mean, they're dropping everything. And Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he did enough to win the game against the Titans, but it was still a close game. And realistically, that offense should be good enough to just completely blow holes into the Titans and kind of steamroll their opponents. But Aaron Rodgers so far has been kind of mid, but you still have hope that he's going to be able to bring it back. Up next, I have Justin Fields. This guy looked really good against the Broncos for like the first half, and they completely flattened out. He had that beautiful throw down the sideline to George Pickens. Like, that is so, you got to be so happy to see that as a Steelers fan. Even though that got called back because of a holding call, that was just such a gorgeous use of his legs and keeping the eyes down the field and throwing the ball into a tight window. I mean, it was like double covered, and he just perfectly placed that ball like deep. It was like 30 yards down the field. Like, that's like what you want to see from Justin Fields, and kind of like what a lot of people had hoped that he would become. So that's really promising. Hopefully he can keep that job in Pittsburgh, and I have a lot of faith in Justin Fields still. But right now, I think he's kind of where he belongs on this tier list. Coming up next, I have the last rookie on the tier list here, and that's going to be Jayden Daniels. I mean, this guy's been looking really good, like really good. His running ability is probably the best since Lamar Jackson. He can throw the ball too. It's not like he's not like he was Justin Fields on the Bears. Like, Jayden Daniels is still looking really good. He's checking the ball down a lot, which is fine. Because they're a bad team, and you kind of just want to see him get more comfortable before he starts making some really flashy plays. I mean, they beat the Giants off of 7 field goals, so that's really not saying a lot, and the Giants have a good defense, so kind of take it with a grain of salt, but at the same time, Jayden Daniels has all the physical tools and is looking really good in his first 2 starts. Up next, I have Jared Goofenschmertz. This guy looked fucking terrible against the Bucs. I'm sorry, Lions fans. He's probably going to be the reason why you won't win a Super Bowl. But for people who are new to football and they don't understand why Jared Goff gets all the hate that he does, just watch kind of the last 2 games. He's not been great. He had a really pretty deep ball to J-Dub in week 1, but other than that, Jared Goff is kind of regressing to form. It just has to do with like stupid decisions. He's not necessarily like inaccurate, but he'll miss a couple throws. Nothing too like crazy to be worried about. It's just like, it just seems like he just makes dumb decisions a lot of the time to lose you games. Coming up next, I have somebody who I also had extremely high last week in my tier list, and that's Tua. This guy's brain is turning into chicken Tua soup, and I feel bad for him. But at the same time, before that, he threw 3 interceptions that were awful and looked like year 2 Tua. And that's really not a good sign because year 2 Tua was terrible, in my opinion. But yeah, Tua did not look good against the Bills, and that's not even supposed to be like a really good defense. So we'll have to see if he comes back. We'll have to see how much all the concussions are really adding up to his decision making and his accuracy, like they kind of did 2 seasons ago. And moving on to the questionably good tier, these are quarterbacks that I'm gonna say like hold your horses, don't get too excited about them yet, but they're looking really good. But just, relax, pump the brakes a little bit. Don't get too hyped about them. Starting up, I have Sam Darnold. This guy, he's Sam Darnold. He's been mid to bad throughout his entire career, seeing ghosts on the field or whatnot. And he had a really good game against the 49ers, a really good upset win. And, that's really nice to see. But Justin Jefferson going down, we're going to have to see if a lot of the load was actually carried by Jefferson, which, I mean, if I'm a betting man, I'm going to say the answer is yes to that. We'll just have to see. But Sam Darnold looks fine on the Vikings. He gets the job done. Up next, I have Derek Carr. And this might come as a surprise after their absolutely monstrous win against the Cowboys. But honestly, like Derek Carr, besides having a couple really nice deep balls to Shaheed, and that one really good throw to Chris Olave, I'm just not sold on him. Like, this man has been doing this. Like, you got to remember, he's been doing this his entire career in the NFL. This is just who Derek Carr is. He's going to show you some extremely flashy passes, some great plays, and then he's just going to do nothing for the rest of the game and for the rest of the season. And I'm really concerned about the Saints because, if they win some games with him, they're going to really think that he's the guy for the future. And who knows, maybe he's finally put it all together, but I kind of doubt it still. I'm still very skeptical. Up next, I have Joe Burrow, which, again, I feel very questionable on Joe Burrow because it does seem like the injury has really negated a lot of his mobility. You kind of see him try to skip the pocket a lot and just get swallowed up by the Chiefs defense. He played fine. He actually played better than Mahomes this weekend, but I just really think that he is kind of underwhelming still as far as what you would expect him to be. As with all these guys in this tier, they could easily go way higher in the tier list or they can go way lower. And I think Joe Burrow is more likely to go higher up on the tier list than lower. Up next, I have Geno Smith. And this guy had a pretty fucking impressive game against the Patriots. I know the game was close, but really that's about the Seahawks defense being not as good as we maybe thought it would be. The throws he was making to DK were beautiful. They were kind of showing what we saw 2 years ago. In general, Geno Smith is just that guy that's going to get some really good pop-off games where you're like, wow, this guy looks amazing. He's extremely accurate. His deep ball looks really kind of mid-range ball looks really nice. But in general, I don't know. Geno Smith just leaves so many questions. We don't know how consistent he can be because it really does seem like he's going to have great games. He's going to have terrible games. So I'm going to not really get my hopes up too high for Geno. Then we have Mr. Baker Mayfield. Again, this guy has probably been the best quarterback in the first 2 weeks of the NFL. But, you really got to say that with bated breath because it's the Baker cycle, right? You don't know. He'll be ass 1 year, terrible, and then he'll be incredible the next season. What are we going to get with Baker? Is he finally going to put the consistency in? I don't know. Bucks are 2-0. It looks good for him, though. Next up, we have the great starter tier, which, starting off, I'm going to have Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford is kind of showing a lot of my concerns with him in the first 2 weeks. He just makes dumb decisions. He's inaccurate, but I kind of feel bad because Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp both went down, but this was just a slaughtering by the Cardinals. I mean, it was really embarrassing. He did not look good at all. I just, when he's on, he's on. He does make some very amazing throws from time to time. He's just so immobile. I mean, I remember there was a play where he was trying to run back to the sideline to just get 0 yards, but he couldn't even make it, and he had a 2-3 yard lead on a defender. It's he's so immobile, he's so old, and that's a huge downside for quarterbacks in today's NFL. So I don't really care how good your arm is. If you're not mobile, you're not going to be able to make it in the league. You're not going to be able to make it far. But Matt Stafford is still one of the better arms in the NFL. Coming up next, I have Dak Prescott. And this was a total fucking slaughter again, kind of like the Rams. But this was even worse because you're the Cowboys and they're the Saints. And the Saints aren't supposed to be good. And the Cowboys are supposed to be a top team in the regular season. And Dak Prescott did not look good. Point blank period. It's Dak Prescott. He's probably going to still have his incredible games throughout the season. And I expect him to kind of return to form. And CeeDee Lamb, again, return to form. But that was just an embarrassment. Coming up next, I have Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts hasn't played yet. I'm recording this Monday morning. But week 1, he looked a little bit shaky. There's not going to be A.J. Brown this night, so we'll have to see how that all plays out. But in general, Jalen Hurts has all the tools that can kind of bring him up to be like one of those borderline elite players. But I don't really see him going like all the way up into the solidified elite tier. But who knows? Maybe Jalen Hurts puts together an MVP season. Coming up next, I have Justin Herbert, who kind of showed that he still has it. I know you're against the Panthers, but still, his deep balls look beautiful, and he still has the mobility to outrun defenders. We saw him do that a couple times on Sunday. But again, it's the Panthers. They tackle themselves. I'm sure you guys have seen that clip on Twitter. But Justin Herbert is still looking like a great quarterback. We just really need to see the offense kind of lean more heavily onto him for me to move him a lot higher. He definitely has the skill to be there all the way up to like the elite tier. Up next, I have Kyler Murray. Wow, what a fucking win for the Cardinals. This was just a masterclass by Kyler. Scrambling around, finding Marvin Harrison. Like, that connection is lethal. What did I say last week? I just hope that everybody fucking takes my word for it. The Cardinals are legit offensively. Their defense looked really good against the Rams. I mean, like, they were getting pressures. They were breaking up the passing game a lot. The run defense was just unpenetrable. But Kyler Murray looked incredible. I mean, his scrambling ability is still there. His deep ball is still there. He's going to be back into that elite category very soon. We just, again, need to see it all come together a little bit more consistently. Up next, I have C.J. Stroud, and the Bears win. I mean, kind of same thing I was saying before. The accuracy issues are still there, but the deep ball's beautiful. He was actually able to kind of move around the pocket and show off his legs a little bit, which was really nice. No homo. Yeah, I mean, C.J. Stroud is going to develop into being one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, I have no doubt. Up next, I have Brock Purdy. And yeah, this was a very disappointing loss for them, but Brock Purdy kind of did all he could. There was no CMC this game. People are going to be like, oh, he's missing one of his 7 superstars. What a big whoop. But it is a huge deal. The Vikings have won 2 games in a row against the 49ers in the regular season. I think that they kind of have their number. So this is like kind of expected loss. Not like expected, like they should win, but like I can kind of see the Vikings having a really solid game plan, like specifically for this team. But yeah, I think the 49ers are still going to be a top team after this. They're going to bounce back. Brock Purdy's going to be incredible again. Moving on to the solidified elites here, I'm going to have the same top 3 as I did last week, so I might as well just get them all in there. And sorry, that's supposed to be there. I might as well just get them all in there and start going over it. Patrick Mahomes looked extremely shaky again against the Bengals. He threw 2 interceptions and probably should have thrown a third, but that one was obviously called back by penalty, of course. But yeah, Mahomes has just looked not good in the regular season the last 2 years, and the only reason why he's still in this tier is because of his playoff prowess. Like, it's undoubtable that he is the best quarterback in the NFL in the playoffs, so you kind of have to keep him in this tier. But in the regular season, it seems like he just doesn't give a fuck. It seems like he knows his defense is good enough where he can just coast, check the ball down, make like one flashy play a night, and they're going to get millions of dollars. They're going to win the game. The refs are going to fucking bail him out. It feels like Mahomes really doesn't care about the regular season. So right now, he honestly, like, if I were to really rank him based on like how he's playing, I'd probably put him in the great starter tier. But you know, you got to take into consideration that it is Mahomes. He is probably the most talented quarterback to ever play football. He's just not really putting it together in the regular season right now. Up next, I have Lamar Jackson, who had a very frustrating night against the Raiders. A very, very tough defense, honestly. I kind of knew they were going to be good defensively, not really offensively, but their defense was really solid last year. But Lamar Jackson really struggled against that. Derrick Henry, my boy, he's kind of old and washed up, and I feel bad. But yeah, it seems like the run game is not really there, and that's kind of limiting a lot of options for Lamar through the passing game. And he's been going for a lot of short balls, a lot of checkdowns, but obviously the running ability is still there. The deep ball is still there. It just, against a tough defense that can really shut down the run game, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a struggle. That's why I have Josh Allen above him, because Josh Allen has shown, again, consistently, that he is the best quarterback in the NFL. He's got the most talent on the field right now. He's just showing out. I mean, this guy looks incredible. I know he didn't really throw a lot of yards against the Dolphins, but that game was kind of like a weird lopsided victory where it kind of all was like the first half, and then the score didn't really change all that much. He might as well have just sat the second half. like, Josh Allen still looks incredible. I mean, I don't think I really need to say much more. He probably should have won MVP last season, and I have him as winning MVP this year. Anyways, guys, this is the full tier list. I probably should have put Skylar Thompson on here somewhere, but if I did, he'd be in poverty QB because it's Skylar Thompson, obviously. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video and hearing me yap. I don't really know how long this video is. Hopefully, it's a little bit of a shorter one for you guys. Last video was very long. Anyways, guys, stay tuned for the NFL Week 1 Power Rankings coming out tomorrow. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day or week. Yay football. King of Bad Takes. Worst Take. Garland. We out.